Well, we got into Group 3 base oils. Do you know about that? That's,
please help me here. Is that like
no, it's very striking. Last week,
this
this is quite a big deal, actually. Last week, Walmart and Costco warned that they didn't have enough base oils to put on their shelves. You know, the stuff you put in your engine was running out. And the reason for that is basically we're heavily dependent on base oil from Hormuz. So it's a very interesting end of the chain story. And this is not, you know, some deli down the road. This is Walmart, Costco, Toyota, Exxon then warned they don't have enough motor oil. It's a physical shortage here in the U.S. right now, and I thought that was pretty fascinating.
Are there physical shortages in the Pacific Rim as well? Francisco Blanch was in saying by far and away the Pacific Rim, Indo-Pacific is affected.
Yes, absolutely. But I think compared to where we were when this started, we immediately looked at Australia. And it's interesting that Australian inventories are actually higher now than they were when we started this crisis. So there is crisis management being successfully employed. And I think you can see that around the world. I've just been in Mexico. All the planes are flying. The place is basically booming and going into the World Cup. And the joke that I had in my research this weekend is that the malls are all buzzing, and these are high-end malls. They're all buzzing with kids buying Mexican World Cup tops, you know, because the Mexicans always have the best strips. The other name for that is Asian petrochemicals. So, you know, there is a petrochemical major issue that's about to emerge through the chain as well. You've shut down, you know, 40% of Asian petrochemical capacity.
So the Strait of Hormuz, I mean, I'm speaking for most of our listeners and viewers here. We couldn't find that on a map before. Now we all know about it. Is it ever going to go back to where it was in January?
No, but you know what's happening today is a couple of tankers have passed. So you're going to see, you know, the oil industry will work out a way to smuggle. You can be sure of that. And I think that the U.S. Announcement that they would allow Russian oil sales tells you that there's going to be, you know, that kind of a move where they probably U-turn and start turning a blind eye to the Iranians moving stuff. Really? And that would come out of the China meetings. The other huge thing, by the way, which is huge, is after China, Trump, you obviously saw China Putin.
Yep.
You know, that's a big deal in oil, believe me.
So if we're 20% of our oil and gas comes out of that part of the world, did they just build more pipelines? But pipelines are also susceptible to stuff. I mean, what do we do in the Strait of Hormuz? You got to open that thing up, don't you?
Well, I think we've characterized this as an incredible time where it's OFACs versus UVACs. So it's the U.S. potential, you know, the U.S. Treasury's global power against drones. And drones have totally changed the shipping, you know, entire future. It's just changed. Pipelines, you have 250,000 miles of pipelines in North America. You have 40,000 in the Middle East. So pipelines are totally a solution. Right. And it's just that, you know, tankers never had a problem previously, and so you didn't worry about it. And actually, it's the Houthis that showed. You know, that's what was so scary to me when the Strait shut down is, by the way, we haven't opened the Suez Canal properly, and it's been 3 years.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah. No. The Suez Canal throughput volumes are 50% of where they were before the Houthis showed up.
I got a different question, but let me get to it then right now. What's your gallon of gas guess? Out a year. I mean, are we getting used to $5 a gallon?
You know, Midwest Radio always want me on when the gas price goes crazy, so I go on those shows, and I told them the other day, you're going to $6. I don't think there's any doubt about $6 a gallon here this summer, because we're just going into summer. Now, you'll get big data from the DOE today. Last night, the API data had one huge number in it, which was 10 million draw in the SPR. So you're running the SPR at obviously over a million in a week, a day. So, you know what I mean? So you're going to run into a question with 390 million barrels in the SPR. You're going to run into a question now: do you just keep allowing that to come into the market? And it's material, so there's a lot of inventory data coming.
Alexa, should I ask about the Wawa or the Caspian Sea? Which one?
I vote Wawa.
Wawa? Okay, it's a gallon of gas. You're telling me John Tucker at the Wawa is going to be $6 a gallon?
Well, of course, that's nationwide average, so that would be like 8, 9 in California. Yeah, so I'm talking nationwide average.
In Berlin,
6.
I looked at Berlin the other day. They're going to go to 11 or 12 bucks a gallon.
Yeah, they will. Oh, yeah. No, I don't have any doubts about that. And what's happening is that because the refiners are really pushing hard to make jet fuel, so the fascinating thing here is our jet fuel inventories are at a record high. Absolutely fascinating. Because they're straining to do that. They're going to make less gasoline into driving season. And the other thing you got to watch, I was talking about base oil, is alky, which gives you octane, is short in California, so they can't make their grade.
They can't make the fancy stuff.
No, they can't get the stuff.
Okay, you know, Paul and I play Risk, folks. When we're done with the show, Paul comes off at 12 noon, and we're usually playing a board game of Risk. I would guess 105 of 100 Americans don't know where the Caspian Sea is. I would say right now it's fascinating, that transport, that dynamic. You're encyclopedic on something like Baku to this pipeline or that. Tell us, give me a 40-second, 1-minute critique here of how we should look at the Caspian Sea.
Well, I think the difference between playing a board game and going to the Caspian, I've been to Tengiz, where the huge Chevron project is, 1 million barrel a day, giant reef that was discovered from space by the Soviets. It's so huge. The tide there is 8 miles daily. That's how flat and how far the water moves and how difficult it is to develop oil there. But generally speaking, the Caspian has a unique position as well, because Kazakhstan is sat right between Russia, China, and the US with Chevron there, and now Ukraine and the drones. So it's a fascinating and huge potential. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of non-OPEC oil that's going to be developed here, no doubt. Because
excuse me, I'm so wound up I forgot my mic. I'm thinking about John Tucker and $6 a gallon. So to Paul's question about the Hormuz, is what's really going to happen here is all this non-OPEC is going to come on.
Oh, no question. Yeah, over time. I mean, one country I'm very interested right now is Argentina, going to grow massively. Brazil has huge incremental sales to China of oil. And of course, Venezuela hopefully will boom. Venezuela can easily supply oil.
Can you imagine this, Paul? Like the Hormuz doesn't matter?
Yeah,
I'm not there yet.
I mean, Paul, you're energy guy, supply, demand, you get that. If I'm a politician, I can't allow $6 a gas. That can't happen. So,
no, that's right. And that's going to be very interesting. And so my note on Sunday was called Watching the Frog Boil Without Blinking. And that, I think, is the outlet. I think that's what will trigger a crisis response, is actually going to be the US gasoline price when it comes down to it. You've got the NASDAQ at a record high. Everything seems fine. The Knicks are on a great, Knicks have got a great comeback. The world is not just simply not ending in the United States. And I think that's affecting the president's sense of the crisis. But, as oil analysts, we've almost, gone quiet because we were screaming so much 6 weeks ago. It's continued to progress on the screaming path.
Right.
And you'll see it in the DOE data today, big draws. Eventually you'll get to a point where the US has to compete with international export sales. So the export sales are going to start fighting our domestic on price, and that's going to make US domestic prices go vertical, especially as we don't really know where operational limits are. So there's a point in inventory where you can't run the system, and we're going to hit that. And that's when prices go nuts, and we haven't hit it yet.